What if I told you that one of the greatest conquerors in human history was just a teenager when he started changing the world, and that by the time he was 32 years old, he had built an empire so vast it stretched across 3 continents and never lost a single battle? This is the story of Alexander the Great, the young Macedonian king who would become history's most successful military commander. But here's what makes it so fascinating. His story isn't just about conquest and bloodshed. It's about how one person's vision can literally reshape the entire world. Let's set the scene. We're in ancient Macedonia, a small kingdom that most people considered backward and unimportant. But Alexander's father, Philip II, had other ideas. He transformed this tiny kingdom into a military powerhouse, creating a professional army with revolutionary tactics. And he did something even more important. He hired the greatest teacher in the world to educate his son. That teacher was Aristotle, the famous philosopher. For 3 years, Aristotle taught young Alexander about everything: philosophy, science, literature, and most importantly, how to think. This education would make Alexander different from every other conqueror in history. Now here's where things get interesting. At age 16, while his father was away fighting, Alexander got his first taste of command. A Thracian tribe decided to rebel, thinking they could take advantage of the young prince. Big mistake. Alexander led an army, crushed the rebellion, and even renamed their capital city after himself. Talk about confidence. But the real test came when Alexander was just 20 years old. His father was assassinated, and suddenly this young man was king of Macedonia. The Greek city-states saw this as their chance to break free from Macedonian control. They thought they could easily defeat this inexperienced kid. They were wrong. Alexander moved with lightning speed, destroying the city of Thebes completely when it rebelled. The message was clear: don't mess with the new king. Greece was now his. But Alexander had bigger dreams, much bigger. He wanted to conquer the Persian Empire, the largest and most powerful state in the world at that time. This would be like a small country today trying to take on a superpower. Most people would have thought he was crazy. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed into Asia with just 35,000 men. His first major battle was at the Granicus River. The Persians had the high ground and outnumbered him, but Alexander had something they didn't: tactical genius. He won decisively. The following year, he faced the Persian king himself, Darius III, at the Battle of Issus. Again, Alexander was outnumbered. Again, he won. But here's what makes Alexander special. When he captured Darius's family, he treated them with respect and dignity. This wasn't just about conquest. It was about building something lasting. Egypt was next. The Egyptians welcomed Alexander as a liberator from Persian rule. He visited the famous oracle at Siwa, where he was proclaimed the son of the god Amun. And he founded a city that would become one of the greatest in the ancient world, Alexandria. But the biggest challenge was still ahead. In 331 BC, at the Battle of Gaugamela, Alexander faced Darius's main army. The Persians had everything: more troops, war elephants, and the home field advantage. Alexander had something better: superior tactics and troops who would follow him anywhere. The battle was a masterpiece of military strategy. He won, captured the Persian capital of Persepolis, and became the master of the largest empire in the world. But he wasn't done. He marched east into Central Asia, where he married a local princess named Roxana. Then he invaded India, crossing the Hindu Kush Mountains and facing war elephants for the first time. At the Battle of the Hydaspes River, he defeated King Porus, who was so brave that Alexander let him keep his kingdom. But here's where Alexander's story takes an unexpected turn. His soldiers, exhausted from years of campaigning, refused to go any further. At the Hydaspes River, the greatest conqueror in history was forced to turn back. Not by enemies, but by his own men. The return journey was a disaster. Many soldiers died crossing the Gedrosian Desert, but Alexander led them back to safety. Then, at age 32, he died suddenly in Babylon. The cause remains a mystery. Was it illness, poison, or something else? Alexander's empire fell apart after his death, divided among his generals. But his real legacy wasn't the empire itself, it was the cultural revolution he started. Greek culture spread throughout the Middle East and Central Asia, creating what historians call the Hellenistic Age. The cities he founded, especially Alexandria, became centers of learning and culture. Greek became the language of government and education. His vision of a unified world where different cultures could learn from each other was centuries ahead of its time. Alexander's military innovations changed warfare forever. His tactics were studied by everyone from Julius Caesar to Napoleon. But his greatest achievement wasn't military, it was cultural. He showed that conquest could be about building bridges between cultures, not just destroying enemies. So what can we learn from Alexander's story? First, that one person really can change the world. Second, that true leadership isn't just about power, it's about vision and respect for others. And third, that even the greatest achievements are temporary, but ideas can last forever. Alexander's story continues to fascinate us because it represents the ultimate expression of human ambition. He achieved more in his short life than most people could imagine in 1,000 years. But his early death reminds us that even the greatest conquerors are still human. The question is, was Alexander a hero or a villain? A visionary leader or a bloodthirsty conqueror? The answer, like the man himself, is complicated. He was both brilliant and brutal, both inspiring and terrifying. But one thing is certain, the world would be a very different place without him. And that's the real lesson of Alexander the Great. It's not just about what he accomplished, but about what his story teaches us about human nature, about the power of ideas, and about how one person's vision can echo through the centuries.